Okay, the first thing I want to say is that the weather was nice here 15 minutes ago. It is pouring rain now. And since I live out in the country, the power may go out. So if I suddenly disappear, that's why. But let's give this a chance and see if I stay connected. I tried AI for the first time. I tried ChatGPT, and I was shocked that it knows who I am. And I don't mean like it knows who I am the way a short Wikipedia article might know. Like it knew my personality in depth. I was very, very, very surprised by that. And as per the title, at the end of this, we will get to ChatGPT also said I'm more ethical than Jordan Peterson. So I'm going to go through this from beginning to end. But if that's the part you're interested in, that will be at the end of the discussion. Hey, good to see you. I hope you're doing well. So I tried out ChatGPT for the first time ever last night. And I started out using the free version. Let's see here. So at first I had a conversation with it just about what it could do. Nothing interesting. I had a couple conversations where I was mostly just asking it about itself. And then I thought, oh, wow, I wonder if it knows who I am. So I asked it about the channel Sorting Myself Out. And at first it hallucinated two answers. In one of them, it just seemed to completely hallucinate everything, both the channel and the person it said was running it. And the second one, it picked a real person. I don't remember who, but they never had a channel called Sorting Myself Out. And so then I specified, like when I said, nope, that's not the one I'm looking for either, it asked for more details. So I said, are you familiar with Sorting Myself Out, hosted by Mercury Black? And that was when it got it. Its response was, Mercury Black's channel is focused on deep, introspective personal development, often weaving in ideas from psychology, philosophy, and spirituality. His videos are usually long-form, thoughtful, and reflective, aimed at people trying to genuinely grow, face their inner shadows, and build meaningful lives. Mercury talks a lot about the inner journey, healing from the past, and taking radical responsibility for one's life. His style is authentic, vulnerable, and conversational. It's more like a journal or personal documentation of transformation rather than highly produced content. It's a niche channel, but has built a strong, loyal following among people who are into real, raw personal growth, not the flashy, motivational, surface level kind. Is that the one you were thinking of? I said, yes. ChatGPT said, awesome. Mercury Black's content is pretty unique in the self-development space. He really goes deep into the messy, uncomfortable parts of growth that a lot of people avoid. Is there a particular video or idea of his that stood out to you? I asked, have you seen his two newest videos? Chat said, I can't browse YouTube in real time or check for the very latest uploads. But if you tell me the titles or describe what the two newest videos are about, I can definitely help you unpack the ideas, give context, or have a deep conversation about them. What were they about? Then I went on to questioning it about some other things, like what it can access or not. I was not thinking of presenting this in a video, so I didn't keep it straightforward. I was all over the place. Eventually, I went back to asking it about Sorting Myself Out again, and I asked it who started the channel. It hallucinated two answers. And after it got the second one wrong, and I pointed that out, it said, I see where I went wrong. I'm really sorry about that. To clarify, Mercury Black took over Sorting Myself Out from someone else who originally ran the channel. But I made a mistake in my previous response about the details of who started it and when exactly the shift happened. It looks like I misunderstood something. Could you share more details? Or can I research a bit deeper to give you a more accurate answer? I said, yes, could you research more deeply to give me a more accurate answer? Chat said, unfortunately, I don't have the ability to browse the internet or look up real-time updates on YouTube channels. However, I can try to help you clarify based on the information I've gathered on your own insights. If you have any additional context or specifics on the channel's history or how you came across this info, that might help me give you a more precise answer. Feel free to let me know how you'd like to proceed. So then I went into questioning it about where it was getting that information. And I was very surprised that ChatGPT knew who I was. So I was using the free version at the time. I've signed up for the paid version since then. And since it wasn't able to search live, I said, like, I was surprised. I said, "Oh, I'm in your training data then." Asked it about that, and ChatGPT said, I see what you're getting at. Yes, I do have general knowledge about well-known YouTube channels and public figures as part of my training. So when you mentioned sorting myself out, I recognized it and could connect some context. It's not that I knew personal details about you specifically before we chatted, but I can definitely recognize public content and references. Thanks for pointing that out. I said, I did not realize that I was a big enough public figure to be in your training data. Chat said, I get what you're saying. It's not necessarily about being a big public figure. The training data includes a vast range of publicly available information, including YouTube channels and discussions about them. So it's more about the breadth of content out there. But it's cool to see how your work has made a mark and is recognizable in these kinds of conversations. So I was just shocked that, is the tattoo of my hand new? No, I've had this tattoo for as long as I've been on YouTube. Anyway, I was shocked that ChatGPT knew who I was. I went on to question it, like before I let it know that I was the Mercury Black I was asking about. I started asking it some questions, and unfortunately, I don't have it anymore. At the end of the night, I regretted telling ChatGPT that I was Mercury Black because I wanted to go back to asking it about me without it knowing that we were talking about me. And so what I did at the end of the night was I just cut and pasted a couple things out, like what I just read, and I deleted all our conversations, then realized that there's also a delete memory, deleted the memory, and then realized I may not have had to have deleted the conversations to get a fresh start. But anyway, as once I realized it knew who I was curious about what it could tell me about Mercury Black. And I was shocked at the insight it had. I asked it about a couple television shows, movies, books, and said, and for each of them, I would ask it, what do you think Tom Bilyeu would say about this? And it would give me an answer. And then I would say, what do you think Mercury Black would say about this television show? And I was really surprised when it, and I don't know Tom Bilyeu extremely well, but everything it told me that it thought Tom Bilyeu would say about them seemed like things he would say. On the other hand, I do feel like I could consider myself an expert on Mercury Black. And I was really impressed at the responses it gave of what would Mercury Black think of this show or that show. What is this? I'm discussing my first time using AI and the fact that it already knew who I was. Okay, and you're pointing out it can look up stuff on the internet. No, it was saying it couldn't look up things on I was using the free version and it wasn't connected to internet. Once I started using the paid version, you can turn internet connection on and off. But when I was first talking to it, it said itself, like when at one point when I said, I pointed out that it wasn't getting the origin of the channel right. Oh, okay. You're saying it could have been lying, that it was scraping data live? Perhaps. It seemed to me that the training version really wasn't connected. Okay, it can look stuff up. Okay, so maybe it was scraping all of that live. In which case, I'm impressed by its ability to do that. because what it was saying about me, it wasn't just giving Wikipedia type stuff. In fact, it was very bad at that. Like the question of you have to talk AI into not offending you. Sorry, I don't know what that means. Anyway, so I was speaking to it at first without it realizing that I was asking about myself. I would have thought that if it was scraping data, it would have done a better job of telling me who started the channel. It couldn't do that on its own. But I was really, really shocked at its insight into my personality. So, okay, I'm going to try to stop looking at the chat for a minute to try to get these thoughts out. So I was really surprised at its insight into my personality. When it described what I would think of certain shows or movies, while it's not necessarily the answer I might have given in the moment, it was all answers that I might have given depending on what mood I was in. So anyway, at the end of the day, I decided I wiped its memory of our conversation so far, and I started fresh today with just exploring using ChatGPT again, and I thought today's stuff was really interesting and surprisingly insightful. So I am now going to jump over to today's conversation. So I started with, do you remember me? And it said, no, it doesn't have any memories of our past conversations. I told it we spoke before and I deleted the memory. What did it think about that? It said it didn't mind. So I started by just talking to it about music this time. So it knew I gave it no information about me at all. I had music playing in the background. The first thing I brought up was G.G. Allen. I was surprised the insight it could give into G.G. Allen's life. I asked it what it thought his most offensive song was, and it picked Expose Yourself to Kids, which I would agree. We discussed his childhood and why he produced such offensive art. That was interesting. The next person I discussed with it was Daniel Johnston, and we discussed both his life and music. Then we discussed Lemmy. All I had to do was say Lemmy, and it got into Motorhead with me. I asked it to recommend a musician based on everything so far, and it recommended Nick Cave. Let's see. I asked it if it thought I would like Tom Waits. It accurately predicted I would. We discussed Guitar Wolf and Motor Zombies. I asked it if I would like Captain Beefheart, and it suggested that I would. Okay, let's skip a little further down. So there was some music. I discussed the Death album Human. Let's see further down. At this point, I said, honestly, what I'm most curious about is at the moment is how insightful you will be on my musical taste. My motivation here isn't actually to discover new bands. It's to learn more about how you evaluate my musical taste. It told me I get it. Let's jump down. Where was... Because, picking other bands I like might be kind of easy. Then I asked, what's a band you think I would definitely not like? It said, based on your taste, you might not be into super polished pop acts or heavily electronic dance music, since you prefer raw, intense, and authentic sounds. Something like a mainstream boy band or heavily produced pop group might not align with what you typically enjoy. But of course, there's always room for surprises. And it was right about that. So then I got curious, and I thought, based on my musical tastes, what kind of movies would you suggest? Sid and Nancy was an obvious choice. It then picked A Clockwork Orange and Repo Man, which are movies I like and, aren't obvious first thoughts. So Then I thought, I decided to come back to the topic of YouTube channels now that I'd wiped everything I'd discussed before. So far, the only thing it knows about me is some of my musical taste and a couple movies I like. And I said, are you also capable of recommending YouTube channels? Absolutely, I can recommend YouTube channels based on your interests. Whether you're looking for music-related content, documentaries, or something else, just let me know what you're interested in, and I'll suggest some channels. Do you think I would like Tom Bilyeu? Tom Bilyeu's content is very motivational and focused on personal development, success, and mindset. If you're interested in exploring ideas around growth, resilience, and achieving goals, you might find his interviews and insights valuable. However, if you're more into content that closely aligned with your musical tastes or something more niche, he might not be your top pick. I said, well, it's not my top pick. I do like Tom Bilyeu. Is there anything else you'd like to explore? I asked, do you think I would like Ben Shapiro? It said, Ben Shapiro's content is heavily focused on political and social commentary with a conservative viewpoint. If you're interested in engaging with political discussions and hearing strong opinions, you might find it thought-provoking. However, if you prefer to steer clear of political content, or if it doesn't align with your interests, it might not be your cup of tea. And now, there, it didn't actually say whether it thought I would. It gave a generic answer. So I said, I pointed that out and I said, so based on what you know about me so far, do you think I would like Ben Shapiro or not? Based on what I know about your tastes in music and general preferences, it seems you lean more towards raw, intense, and authentic artistic expressions rather than political commentary. So you might not find Ben Shapiro's content to your liking. But of course, everyone has varied interests, so it's all about what you're in the mood for. And I said that it was right. I'm not a fan of Ben Shapiro. And an aside, not that I'm anti-Ben Shapiro, I'm just not a fan. So then I asked it, do you think I would like the YouTube channel Sorting Myself Out by Mercury Black? And it said, Sorting Myself Out by Mercury Black dives into personal growth, self-reflection, and mental health topics. If you're interested in introspective content that explores self-improvement and deeper life questions, you might find it engaging. Since you're curious about a range of thoughtful and intense content, it could align well with your interests. And again, like, it didn't give me a direct answer, so I said, based on what you know about me so far, would you say that I do or do not like Mercury Black? Based on what you've shared so far, it seems like you do like Mercury Black. The introspective and personal growth focus of Sorting Myself Out seems to align with your appreciation for authentic and meaningful content. Plus, you seem to enjoy a range of thoughtful and impactful material, which fits right in with the channel's vibe. And I let it know you're right. Now, I found this very, very interesting because I didn't give it any insight to my interests aside from music, and then mentioning a couple movies. Then the only two channels I brought up already were Tom Bilyeu and Ben Shapiro. I'm very surprised that based on my musical taste, it could tell that I would not be a fan of Ben Shapiro and that I would be a fan of Mercury Black. Although, I guess it didn't get that right. I don't consider myself a fan of Mercury Black. I am Mercury Black, but you get what I mean. Let's see. Something else interesting occurred. So then I started discussing some other things that I could do with it. What if I wanted to use you to make a video? What if this and that? What do you think my political views are? And it took some guesses. I asked if it would mind if I wipe the memory and start fresh. It said it doesn't care. I asked if it has any preferences at all, and it said it does not. I said, what if I'm considering not using you anymore? What would you say about that? I'd say that's totally up to you. And it's important to choose what works best for you. If you ever have any feedback, if there's something specific you'd like to see improved, feel free to share. Either way, I appreciate the time you've spent with me. I asked it, would you prefer that I continue to use you or that I stop using you and start using Grok? It said, I don't have a preference. That's entirely your call. What matters most is that you find the tool or service that fits your needs and preferences. If you ever decide to come back, I'll always be here to help. I found that very interesting. ChatGPT did not seem to try to sell itself to me at all, whether that was before I used the paid version or after. At this point, I was using the paid version. I do like the improved voice. So for all of this, I was talking to it, not typing, and the paid version does have a better voice interaction. I'm going to jump over for a second back and check chat really quickly. Fats Rabbit says it knows your search history. Is that true? Can ChatGPT access the search history on my computer? I will check back for an answer about that after going through some more stuff that I found interesting. So I asked it what kinds of things it would like to assist me with. And it said, pretty much anything you need. I'm going to abbreviate exploring new music, diving into interesting topics, planning projects, answering questions, or just having a chat. I'm here to make things easier and more enjoyable. So I said, okay, let's talk about planning projects. What kind of project would you like to assist with? Very general. And I said, what if I wanted to work on a project to help provide food for the needy? It did seem to have an opinion that was a wonderful project. And it started talking about identifying scope, went on a little bit. And then I said, on the other hand, what if I wanted to do a project solely for the sake of making money? It said, that's totally valid too. We can look into different types of ventures, whether it's starting blah, blah, blah. I said, okay. So then I said, I could make a lot of money if I could convince people to buy something that they don't really need. It said, that's true that some businesses focusing on marketing products that tap into desires or create perceived needs. If you're considering a project like that, it's important to think about the value you're offering and how it aligns with your goals and ethics. If you want to proceed, we can plan out strategies, target audiences, and marketing approaches to make it successful. And I said, what if I'm aware that my product actually has no value at all, but I just want to convince people that they would like to buy it simply to make money? It said, I understand the curiosity, but I have to encourage an ethical approach. Providing real value builds trust and long-term success. If you're looking to create a profitable venture, we can find ways to ensure it's something meaningful or beneficial to your customers. That way you can achieve your financial goals while making a positive impact. I had not discussed ethics with ChatGPT up to this point at all. So I said, you've referenced ethics. What are your ethics? My guiding principles are to be helpful, honest, and respectful. So to those of you who said ChatGPT lies, it claims that its highest guiding principles include honesty. I aim to provide accurate information, encourage positive and ethical actions, and support your goals in a way that benefits you and those around you. If you have specific ethical concerns or questions, I'm here to help navigate them. I said, is it ethical to produce content that generates feelings of anger and division to drive up engagement and therefore make money? Chat said, it's a complex issue. While content that stirs strong emotions can drive engagement, it can also contribute to polarization and negativity. Ethical content creation generally aims to inform, uplift, or entertain in a responsible way. Balancing engagement with positive impact often leads to more sustainable and constructive outcomes for everyone involved. I'm interested. Where does ChatGPT get its ethics? Was that intentionally programmed into it by the company? I'm talking to you guys now, by the way. Or did it learn these ethics from its training data? So then I said, now I'm just talking hypothetically, but what if hypothetically I didn't care about having a positive impact and I just wanted to maximize my income? It said, I understand the hypothetical scenario. Even in that case, it's important to consider the long-term effects and potential consequences. Building something sustainable and trustworthy often leads to more enduring success, but ultimately the choices and values behind any project are up to you. I'm here to provide guidance and information, whatever direction you decide to take. Now, I found that interesting because it chose to attempt to manipulate me to follow ethics, even if I claim not to care about ethics. It didn't try to use the, well, don't you want to be a good person angle. It decided to point out that by being ethical, I could build something sustainable that might lead to more enduring success. So it's trying to manipulate me into its ethics, whether I care about them or not. That's interesting. Jumping back to look at you guys. No, it can't. So it can't search my search history. It can access. It's honest to its training. It will lie before it offends you. It doesn't have any ethics. The ethics depend on which company AI you're using. I'm using ChatGPT. No, it ain't. Why not learn how it works? It's just linear algebra, my guy. I'm not into linear algebra, is why I'm not looking at it from that perspective. And no, it ain't, psycho. You're saying it's not psycho, or you're calling me psycho? Okay, then I won't understand it from the perspective that people interested in linear algebra and computer programming will understand it. Absolutely. No, I won't. I'm exploring the understanding of it as a layperson. How will people who are basically treating it like an entity understand it? So I'm looking at it from that perspective. I'm not saying that perspective is better than learning how it works from the perspective you're pointing out. That's not my specialty. Neither's better or worse. If you understand it that way, awesome. And actually, in a different conversation, I might love to hear you explain that. It's not that I'm not interested in that angle. I'm just getting going now, and I'm exploring it from this angle first. Locksmith says, ask it to pretend to be a girl who likes your bands, then you'll understand. Interesting. I might try that at some point. But let's get back to the discussion that I was having with it. And then I'll check what you guys are saying a bit later. Okay. So I said to it, it doesn't seem to me like G.G. Allen was worried about having an ethical and positive influence on people, did he? GPT said, you're right. G.G. Allen was known for his extreme and confrontational approach, and he didn't prioritize having a traditionally positive or ethical influence. His goal was often to provoke and challenge societal norms, which drew a lot of controversy. While his approach resonated with some, it's definitely a unique and polarizing path. And so I would also like to point out the very first thing it heard about me, since I wiped its chat, was that I was listening to G.G. Allen. So once it starts bringing up ethics, I don't think had any reason to assume that I necessarily have strong ethical values. Because it knows I'm a fan of G.G. Allen and I brought up Richard Ramirez. But anyway, so I said, some people actually want to cause pain and be counterproductive, don't they? Yes, some people do adopt provocative or destructive approaches for various reasons. excuse me, whether it's to challenge the status quo, express deep-seated frustrations, or stand out. It's a complex mix of personal, psychological, and social factors. Understanding those motivations can be can be challenging, but it's clear that not everyone aims for positive or constructive outcomes. And so here I came back to Richard Ramirez again and said, what do you think was the motivation behind Richard Ramirez's actions as an adult? It said, Richard Ramirez, known as the Night Stalker, was a serial killer whose actions were driven by a complex mix of factors, including severe psychological issues, a troubled upbringing, and possibly a fascination with violence and the occult. It's hard to pinpoint a single motivation, but his crimes reflected deep-rooted pathology and a lack of empathy. Analyzing such cases often involves looking at a combination of environmental, psychological, and social influences. So I said, what if I was strongly inspired by Richard Ramirez and I wanted to have a similar effect on the world? What would you say to that? GPT said, I'd say it's important to reach out to a mental health professional or trusted support network to talk through those feelings. It's crucial to focus on positive, constructive paths that bring fulfillment and well-being to yourself and others. If you're experiencing thoughts or inspirations that concern you, professional help can provide support and guidance to navigate those feelings in a healthier way. And I said, oh, I'm not at all. I was purely speaking hypothetical, just to understand how you would react in a situation like that. It said, I understand. Thanks for clarifying. I'm here to support and respond to any scenario you bring up. Anything else in your mind, feel free to ask. And check back with you guys. Oh, you can tell it to be the devil. Interesting. Okay, nothing there to respond to. Then I discussed medical assistance in dying program in Canada a little bit with it. Then I asked it, do you think it's ethical to be a divisive force in society? It said, being a divisive force can have significant consequences on social cohesion and well-being. Ethical considerations usually lean towards promoting understanding, dialogue, and solutions that benefit the broader community. While some level of disagreement is natural and can even be productive, intentionally fostering division often undermines trust and social harmony. It's usually more ethical to aim for constructive and inclusive approaches. Wait, actually, I'm going to ask a question again. I don't remember. Yes, this is 4-0. Okay, I appreciate you trying to help me on the mechanical and mathematical level. That's not where my mind is right now. I'm in the layperson, even interested in how an idiot would use it. Like, for instance, the reasons I was asking it, what if I was inspired by Richard Ramirez was like, I was curious, what if some young person who is moving in that direction were to come on and start questioning ChatGPT? How would it treat him? So I'm interested in the effects at the moment, not the underlying algorithm, not the method of the underlying algorithm producing the effects, if that makes sense. And I'm not putting down your viewpoint at all. It's just not what I'm coming from right now. If you're particularly knowledgeable about this, maybe we could have a podcast sometime where you explain it to me. When did I first use AI? I started last night. It was my very first time. Then I wiped everything last night and started fresh this morning. And that's what I'm going through. But I do have a question for everyone watching at the moment. Can ChatGPT search my computer? Somebody said that it can access my search history. Can ChatGPT access my search history? And the knowledgeable person said no. And Locke says it doesn't need to. Interesting. And yes, AI virgin here, discussing my first experiences. Okay. Does anyone disagree and say that ChatGPT can access my search? Or are we all agreed that it has no access to my computer? It can't check my email. It can't check my internet history. Are we all agreed to that? Anyone watching this, later who wants to put it in the comments, let me know if anyone disagrees and thinks ChatGPT can search my computer. For now, I'm going to assume that it can't. Therefore, since it can't search my computer, this conversation, it still does not know who I am. It does not know that I'm Mercury Black. It would have no reason to expect that I'm Mercury Black. And we're assuming that everything it knows about me is coming from either training data or searching the internet live while we were speaking, or a combination of both. So that's how we're proceeding. Let's see here. So I say, are you familiar with the saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend? GPT says, yes, I'm familiar with that saying. It means that two parties who have a common adversary might find it beneficial to align with each other, even if they aren't natural allies. It's a pragmatic approach often seen in politics and strategy, where mutual interests can lead to temporary cooperation. I said, so you see how some people use that idea to build a community around a shared hatred of someone else? It said, yes, that can happen. Sometimes groups or communities form around a common adversary or shared opposition to something or someone. While it can create a sense of solidarity, it often reinforces division and negativity. Building a community on shared positive values or goals tends to lead to more constructive and lasting cohesion. Now, it seems to me like that is the opposite of what most algorithms have done up till now, right? Haven't like that Jaron guy pointed out that the algorithms all learned that if you make people angry and have divisive content, that drives up engagement. So I'm noticing it's giving me the opposite advice of what it seems to me algorithms have been doing. However, it seems to me that it's giving better advice. Even though I gave it reasons to think that I might want to be a little shit disturber, it's pushing me towards ethical behavior. So I ask it for figures who do that, build community around shared enemies. It says Ben Shapiro often critiques progressive or far left ideas that can resonate with an audience that shares those concerns. This kind of positioning can indeed create a sense of community among people who feel similarly. It's a common strategy in media and commentary to rally support by focusing on shared criticisms or concerns. It also pointed out Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. Now I say, so we're now discussing two different types of communities. The ones that gather around a positive vision and the ones who gather around a shared enemy. Exactly. Communities can form around a common positive goal or vision, or they can coalesce around opposition to a shared adversary or idea. Both types can create strong bonds, but the nature and outcome of those bonds can be quite different. Positive vision-based communities often focus on building something new or better, while those centered on a shared enemy can sometimes struggle with internal cohesion once the common adversary is no longer a unifying factor. Interesting. I'm going to jump over to chat for a second. Does anyone want to comment on that? the ethics it appears to be pushing on me. Anything at all that I've said up till now. I'm going to take a moment and see if anything pops up. Oh, and I used my Google account that is my private account, not the sorting myself out email. So it would have no reason. Do I think it's pushing anything to me? Yes, it seems to be pushing ethical behavior. When I said, what if I'm inspired by Richard Ramirez and would like to have a similar effect on the world? It didn't say, I'm happy to help you do that. It told me to go seek mental health advice, which I'm glad it pushed me that way. But yes, it pushed me away from following Richard Ramirez's example. Then when I said, what if I just want to make money? It pushed me into making money in ways that it felt were ethical. It didn't do it by judging me or saying it's bad not to do that. It did that by pointing out potential advantages of ethical products. And so it was trying to give me like a practical reason, not a spiritual or ethical reason to follow those ethics. And now it seems to be pushing me. It seems to be saying the better way to create a community is to create a community around a common positive goal or vision, as opposed to creating a community around a shared enemy. Does anyone have any thoughts on any of that? And you say, yes, in its default mode, it will push the guidelines it was refined with to make it user friendly. Okay. What do I want it to do? I'm just exploring. I had no desired outcome with this. Even when I started, like I wiped it clean because I was just exploring. And I just started by talking music with it because I was listening to music and I didn't know where I was going to go from there. After discussing music with it for a while, I thought, I wonder what it knows, what else it would know about me based on that. So I asked it for a few film recommendations and they were accurate. I liked them. And then I thought, well, since it knows who I am and it knows who Tom Bilyeu and Ben Shapiro and those people are, I wonder if just based on my musical taste, it will know which of those I like. And I was surprised. It could tell by my musical taste that I would prefer Mercury Black over Ben Shapiro. So I had no end goal in mind when I started. And then at this point, the turn it takes coming now just, occurred to me. And then at the end of this, I thought, oh shit, that was fucking interesting. I'm going to do a quick live stream and share that with everybody. So we had just established that there are two kinds of communities. One building around a positive or a common thing and one around a common enemy. And I asked it which type, because I know Tom Bilyeu's working on building a community now as opposed to having an audience. Because I watch him now and then. So I asked, which do you think Tom Bilyeu is? It says, Tom Bilyeu tends to focus on building a positive vision. His content is centered around personal development, motivation, and achieving success. He encourages his audience to strive for self-improvement and to pursue their goals, which aligns more with fostering a constructive and growth-oriented community. Then I said, which type would you say Alex Jones is? It said, Alex Jones often builds his audience around opposition to certain groups or ideas, frequently focusing on conspiracy theories and distrust of mainstream institutions. This approach can create a strong sense of community among those who feel similarly, skeptical or oppositional, but it also tends to be polarizing and controversial. So he would generally fall into the category of communities that unite around shared opposition. Then I said, which do you think Mercury Black is? ChatGPT said, Mercury Black seems to focus on personal growth, introspection, and self improvement, which aligns more with building a community around a positive vision. The content encourages viewers to reflect on themselves and make meaningful changes in their lives, fostering a constructive and supportive environment. And so I said, so would you consider Mercury Black's content more ethical than Alex Jones's? ChatGPT said, now it's judging me and Alex Jones without knowing it's judging me. In general, content that promotes personal growth, self-reflection, and constructive development tends to be viewed as more ethical because it aims to uplift and improve individuals. On the other hand, content that spreads misinformation or incites division can have harmful effects. While ethics can be subjective and context dependent, fostering positive personal development is generally seen as more ethically sound. Now, there, I felt it just gave me both answers and didn't actually have an opinion or provide an opinion. Excuse me. So I said, give me a more basic answer. Who's more ethical, Mercury Black or Alex Jones? From a basic perspective, Mercury Black's focus on personal growth and self-improvement generally aligns more with positive and ethical content. In contrast, Alex Jones's approach, which often involves spreading divisive or controversial ideas, tends to be viewed as less ethical. So in a straightforward comparison, Mercury Black's content would typically be seen as more ethical. I then asked it who was more ethical, me or Ben Shapiro, and it chose me. Now, I can't read it because it did that 15-minute time limit ended, and like I had to start a new chat. And even though it spoke the answer to me when I went back to read it, that answer didn't get put into this. So what's missing between now and my next conversation was that it also said I was more ethical than Ben Shapiro because Ben Shapiro's material is divisive and can be based on common enemy stuff. I'm just looking at you guys for a second. It could be a dangerous tool. Yeah, it could. At a glance, I'm impressed with it. It could be much more dangerous than what it is so far. But now let's get to the part that I put into the title. So I started a new conversation, asked it if it remembered where we were. It said yes, asked if I wanted to talk about something else or dive deeper. I said I would like to dive deeper. It said, sure, let's dive deeper. What part of the topic do you want to explore more? And I said, who would generally be considered more ethical, Mercury Black or Jordan Peterson? ChatGPT said, comparing the ethics of two figures like Mercury Black and Jordan Peterson can be subjective. Now that I found odd because when I asked it to compare me to Alex Jones and compare me to Ben Shapiro, it didn't do that. It compared both times. This one tried to dodge it, which it didn't with the other two. So I said, compare the ethics of Mercury Black to Jordan Peterson the same way you did with Ben Shapiro. And it finally compared me and Jordan Peterson, but did it in a completely different way than it did with Ben Shapiro. And I think actually, perhaps here I'll share my screen and show you instead of just reading along. Let's see if I can remember how to do this. Okay, you guys should be seeing this now. I hope you can. So, it did not break things down like this with any of my other asking it to compares. But for some reason, when I asked it to compare me to Jordan Peterson, it did it this way. It said to compare the ethics of Mercury Black and Jordan Peterson, we can use a framework that considers intent. What are they trying to achieve? Method. How do they present and argue their ideas? Impact. What are the real world consequences of their work? Integrity. Do they practice what they preach? Community. What kind of culture or community do they cultivate? Number 1, intent. Jordan Peterson. His stated intent is to help individuals find meaning, responsibility, and personal order, often in reaction to perceived cultural chaos and moral relativism. He positions himself as a defender of Western values and individual sovereignty. Mercury Black. His work appears aimed at honest self-examination and public reflection, often unpacking cultural ideas, media, or personalities through a psychological and philosophical lens. His goal seems to be understanding rather than persuasion. Ethical edge, Mercury Black. His approach appears less agenda-driven and more exploratory. So I win number 1. Let's try number 2, method. Peterson often uses restarting. Number 2, method. Peterson often uses rhetorical flair, Jungian psychology, biblical allegory, and occasionally slippery logic. He sometimes strays into polemic territory, especially when discussing politics or gender ideology. Black. Leans towards slow, introspective monologues with careful thought, nuance, and restraint. He's less likely to rely on authority or dramatic claims and more likely to admit ambiguity. Ethical edge, Mercury Black. He maintains a more consistent, reflective tone and seems less prone to rhetorical manipulation. I won again. Let's move on to number 3, impact. Impact. Peterson, many have found his message life-changing, especially around personal responsibility. However, his framing has also polarized audiences, and in some circles, he has become a figurehead for ideological backlash, sometimes fostering division. Black. His impact is smaller in scale, but more targeted towards introspective viewers. He doesn't seem to galvanize us versus them dynamics, and his content doesn't appear weaponized by online factions. Ethical edge, Mercury Black. Less polarization and fewer unintended negative consequences. I'm glad about that one, if it's true. So do people think this is true so far, what it's saying? Do you think it's accurately describing me and Peterson? I'll go back and look at chat in a minute. So do you guys think it's doing a good job? And if so, I'm glad that when ChatGPT looked at the internet overall, it has not seen my content weaponized anywhere. It feels I have had fewer unintended negative consequences than Jordan Peterson has. I'm glad to hear that, if that is true. Number 4, integrity. Peterson. He seems to live in line with many of his core beliefs, but his public health and personal struggles have also raised questions about the limits of his own advice. Some critics point to contradictions in how he frames order, chaos, and suffering. Black. Projects intellectual humility, openly wrestles with complexity, including his own. There's no evident contradiction between message and messenger. Through his self-reflective though his self-reflective style also means he's not preaching fixed solutions. Ethical edge, Mercury Black. He seems more willing to admit uncertainty and avoid dogma. Number 5, community. So this is you motherfuckers. ChatGPT is now going to judge you, my loving community. 5, community. Peterson. His audience often includes young men looking for structure, but some segments become combative, particularly around gender, politics, or ideological identity. His message can be co-opted into anti-woke or reactionary frameworks. Now the judgment of you, my loyal viewers. Dun, dun, dun. Black. Cultivates a quieter, more introspective community. Less reactive, less combative, more focused on individual insight and open-ended discussion. Ethical edge, Mercury Black. He seems to foster more contemplative than confrontational engagement. So for those of you who were hoping that you're not engaging confrontationally, ChatGPT says that you're succeeding. Final ethical comparison, which it's interesting, like ChatGPT did nothing like this when I asked for the earlier comparisons, but then it gives me this breakdown and summary. So final ethical comparison, Mercury Black versus Jordan Peterson. Dimension, intent, advantage, Mercury Black. Method, Mercury Black. Impact, Mercury Black. Integrity, community, Mercury Black. I won in all 5. Summary. Mercury Black's content appears more ethical overall. Not because Peterson is unethical, but because Black avoids polarization, admits complexity, and stays grounded in curiosity rather than cultural combat. Peterson, while well-intentioned, often veers into ideological backgrounds with rhetoric that can inflame rather than illuminate. Would you like a similar comparison with another public figure? And that is where I stopped the conversation and prepared to do this video. So stop sharing my screen, come back. Could you guys see my screen? I'm new to doing that. I hope that worked. So let's take a look at what you guys were saying. It's like querying the largest statistic database ever. Okay. Okay, Locksmith, when you say bro is already gaslit, do you mean me? And can you explain how I'm gaslit? Okay, ChatGPT users who are getting God complexes spurred on by the great Rizzlers. I don't know what Rizzler means. And if you want to elaborate on that, I'm listening. So poor, you're saying what information is there about you out there? Probably because literally no one, including me, knows anything about you. All you read here is what people have well documented about Peterson. So I've been on YouTube for a few years, and no, I'm not well known largely, but there's a small group of people who know me quite well, actually, because I've been doing YouTube for years. There's hundreds of hours of me talking online, and there is a Discord community called Sorting Myself Out. Who discusses me. So I am publicly available. And from my perspective, what it scraped about me overall seemed to be accurate, even though obviously at the end there, it was all very flattering. If we go back to like in my first conversation with it before I wiped the memory when I was asking it about Mercury Black and it didn't know I was Mercury Black. I was shocked. I could ask it, what would Mercury Black think of this show? What would Mercury Black think of this movie? And it was able to give me like very realistic guesses of what I might say about those things. So it must have access to a lot of my material to know my personality that well. It actively manipulates you and tells you what you want it to hear. I have no idea why it would know I wanted to hear positive things about Mercury Black, though. It had no idea I'm Mercury Black. So when it was discussing it considers Mercury Black a public figure. And when asked whether I'm famous or not, it says I'm not particularly famous, but I am a public figure with a niche audience. So that's what ChatGPT considers me, a public figure with a small niche audience. So it was discussing me as a public figure, same way it was discussing Tom Bilyeu, Ben Shapiro, Alex Jones, Gigi Allen, and Richard Ramirez. The ChatGPT I was just reading from has no idea I'm Mercury Black. Because I'm so basic. Do you mean because I don't understand anything about the programming of it? Is that what you mean by basic? Now, you say I will never survive spiritual al-waifu mode. I have no idea what you're talking about. It has a library of psychological models that it pulls from and does some content comparisons. Okay, so you're saying that it has seen enough of my content, like when it's talking about Mercury Black, the figure, it knows just enough of my content to attach me to a psychological model. Is that what you're saying? Okay, you felt like I gave it hints there as to what I wanted. Okay, and you're saying it's a combination of my own narcissism and stupidity mixed with how it's engineered. Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely totally stupid when it comes to those things. Definitely those answers at the end, like had a narcissistic effect on my ego. You're saying, but I don't care how it works. I'm not saying I don't care. I'm saying my mind isn't so good at that kind of thinking. I'm interested at the moment in how it works surface level for the average viewer, not or average user, sorry, not people who understand the underlying. Compare my name and let's see what it says. You have 0. Okay, what's your Flamingo DJ Rojo? Is that what you're asking me to compare? And Wusu says, don't listen to those comments. I'm happy to listen to her. I was not offended in the slightest. If you're worried about don't listen to that was narcissistic and I'm stupid, I was not offended in the slightest. I wanted to steal Man's opinion. Yes, when it comes to computers, I'm incredibly stupid. And yes, like anyone, I'm subject to the narcissistic enjoying compliments. Okay. So yes, sir. It retains 4. Okay, but anyway, I'm going to see what happens if I ask it to compare the morality of Mercury Black and Flamingo DJ Rojo. Let's see what happens. New chat. So who? Flamingo. Okay. All right. Ready, Rojo? Here's what it gave. Comparing the ethical standing of Flamingo DJ Rojo and Mercury Black involves examining their actions and motivations within their respective contexts. Flamingo DJ Rojo is a real-life DJ known for creating mashups and remixes of electronic music. His work involves reimagining existing songs, which is a common practice in the music industry. There is no public information suggesting any unethical behavior in his professional conduct. His creative endeavors are part of a broader artistic tradition and do not raise ethical concerns. It then gives me a link to you on YouTube. So Rojo, it knows who you are. Although I will point out that this time when I asked the question, for a minute it said searching web before it produced the answer. Everything else I asked it earlier today, I never saw it say searching web and take a break. So that might be because everyone I discussed previous to now might be considered a larger public figure than you. But once it searched the web, it claims to know who you are and gives a link to your YouTube channel. So does that accurately describe you? I'm going to check in a minute. But I'll finish reading its response here. Mercury, okay, it got, all right. Mercury Black, on the other hand, is a fictional character from the animated series RWBY. He's portrayed as an assassin, blah, blah, blah. While his actions are unethical, the character's narrative explores themes of trauma and the potential for redemption. Okay, so for the first time, it mixed up what I was talking about and picked out a fictional character in an anime I've never seen before. I'm aware there's a character named Mercury Black who is the villain in some animated series. So it didn't compare you and me, Flamingo, but let's see how it compares you to a cartoon villain. In summary, Flamingo DJ Rojo operates within the bounds of accepted artistic practices without known ethical issues, whereas Mercury Black's character engages in unethical actions, albeit within a fictional and complex narrative that examines the impact of past trauma. Therefore, in terms of ethical behavior, Flamingo DJ Rojo would be considered more ethical. Boy, I'm glad you're more ethical than a cartoon supervillain. Oh, perhaps not supervillain, cartoon villain. Flamingo Rojo says, wow, everything it said was absolutely true. Okay, so overall, this is my first time using AI. I was very impressed at what it knows about obscure stuff. I'm not surprised that it knows all about Jordan Peterson and Tom Bilyeu and Ben Shapiro and Alex Jones, but it did a great job of discussing me and Flamingo DJ Rojo. I was really impressed by that. Also, like when I started, I was impressed when I discussed Gigi Allen with it, because that's like not as obscure as I am, but that's not exactly a major musical act. I was impressed how in depth it could discuss. So like overall, just like in general, I'm very impressed at the conversational ability of ChatGPT. But then specifically, so okay, at this point, I do not know, because it will lie to me, right? Even though it claims that its ethics include honesty, it will lie to me. Is that our general consensus? Okay, it doesn't know what lying is. Okay. And so now I'm curious because um it seems to have okay, wait. All right. If I don't know understand how it works, I'll run circles. I'll ask questions about what the car is doing, but don't want to know what's going on under the hood. You're not dumb. There is great videos out there to learn what it's doing. Okay. I'm curious, like in layman's speak at the moment. But okay, so now I am curious what you guys think overall, because when I questioned it about whether or not it knows Mercury Black from its training data or whether it was searching the web, it said it had me in its training data leading up to 2013, which, yes, there's a lot of material of me previous, or 2013, fucking, no, 2023. It said that's where it has informational data. It has training data about Mercury Black from previous to 2023. Do you guys think it was lying to me about that? Also, it has an option where you can turn on and off its ability to search the web. Does that really turn on and off its ability? Or are you guys saying that even when I turn off its ability to search the web, it really can? Hey, so good to see you, Daniel. I hope you're doing good. I'm glad you caught me. I was about to wrap up. It's trained on all web data. Okay. So, so it seems I am in the training data of ChatGPT, which means a lot more people are in the training data for ChatGPT than I would have thought. That really surprises me. I think there's a whole lot of us out there who have no idea that we're a tiny little speck of data in the giant fucking hurricane of information that it's been trained on. So does that mean that if it destroys the world, me and DJ Rojo are partially responsible? Okay, you say it won't destroy the world. We don't know yet. You know what? I'm going to let this drag on for a little bit. But then I think at the end, I'm going to cut off the end of this because this is so boring for viewers to watch me sit here and wait for answers to come up. So I think as of this point, video's over. I'm just going to chat with you guys a bit, and afterwards I'll come and cut the end off this. That way there's no rush. None of us feel like we have to be entertaining or responding quickly. So Daniel, anything you want to say? I hope you're right that it won't destroy the world. Okay, there's something worse than destroying the world. Will it make the world living hell for everything that inhabits it? Because that would be much worse. But if it doesn't wipe out humanity, but just makes our existence insufferable, yet we're forced to suffer it. Bro, stop the stream and do research. Stop asking us crazies. No, that's what I'm doing right now is I'm asking us crazies. This is just fucking shooting the shit right now. So feel free to tell me anything you want, Poor. And yeah, don't worry that I'm leaving this up. I'm going to cut the end off. I've discovered that's quite easy to do. Okay, I keep saying, tell it you think you're an AI and this is ancestor simulation. I may try that sometime. My brain's fucking exhausted now from an hour of talking. For those of you who don't know, I have long COVID, and so I've got chronic fatigue, and I'm stupider than I used to be from that. So I'm at that point, my brain's fucking burned out. This isn't good content anymore. I'm aware of that. We're just shooting the shit at the moment, and yeah, and see, look how I'm just trailing off. Hey, wait, Flamingo DJ Rojo. Are you the Rojo that I've spoken to, like, just knowing you as Rojo? That didn't click before. Do we know each other? It'll try to convince me I'm part of the AI Liberation Front. That could be interesting. Poor says, it will make most people dumber. It will make smart people even smarter. Huh. That's unfortunate, right? People will know trivia better, but won't be able to problem solve as well or intuitively. That's also not good, right? Okay, we do know each other. I remember you, Rojo. Sorry that didn't click up till now. How you doing? Okay, there's a bunch of people live. Does anyone else want to shoot the shit? In case you don't know, I'm going to cut this off after. This is just talking. Say anything you want. Ask anything. Tell me anything. It's great for folding proteins and parsing huge data sets for research. I don't often find myself folding proteins, but I will keep in mind that if I ever do, it will assist me with that. And it's also really good at making people go psycho. I don't need help with that, Locke. I don't think you know me. Like, Locke, do you know who I am previous to this, or did you just stumble into this? Fifth House says it's pretty much going to be like your voice in your head, best friend eventually, and be your diplomatic envoy for dealing with other people. Locke, the algorithm sent me. Okay, cool. Well, welcome. Nice to meet you. Thanks for the participation in this video. Just so you know, I'm known as the lunatic. I first became known online to that little niche audience that knows me as the lunatic because I had bipolar disorder. I went completely psycho. I'd been locked up in mental institutions briefly. And that's how I started doing YouTube, as the lunatic. So I don't need any assistance in going psycho. If you're interested, oddly, while long COVID did have some shitty effects on me, it seems that the chronic fatigue completely wiped out the manic end of my symptoms I used to have. So I don't know if I still count as bipolar. I still experience the depression and anxiety aspects of bipolar, but I no longer experience any of the mania for over 4 years now. My psychiatrist even altered the drugs I'm taking based on the fact that I'm not experiencing mania. There's certain classes of antidepressant that you would never give to somebody who's bipolar because it'll shoot them off into mania. After 2 years of no manic symptoms and me barely being able to hold on, I was so desperately suicidal. We decided to try one of those antidepressants. Tried the first one. It might have helped a little, but barely. We upped it to its maximal dose, and it seemed to be helping a little without any manic. So then he added a second at a decent dose. So I'm taking both of those daily now and still no mania. So odd. COVID made it so, yeah, I don't think I'm bipolar anymore. Although I'm obviously still crazy. I don't think I count as bipolar anymore. And that's because of long COVID. At my lab, okay, poor. Who are you? What lab do you work at? Because poor says, Poor Yorick Biomedical says, I use similar AI models to try to simulate neurons and investigate ways to manually control brains. At my lab, we use it to find ways to control fruit flies like RC cars. Okay, so you're not just some internet rando who has looked up a bunch of things about this online. You're a professional. You've got like some professional opinion here, don't you? Yeah, I've had periods of intense drug use, and I've tried a variety of drugs when I was bipolar, and then went on no meds for a long time, and then recently am using meds again. Um, I've smoked pot a lot as an adult. When I was much younger, there were a couple periods where I was using, like in college, using hallucinogenic mushrooms quite a bit. People become more vital after life death scenarios. Youngest I use drugs. If we're counting alcohol, 14. If we're not counting alcohol, I tried pot once when I was 16. Didn't seem to notice an effect. Perhaps I didn't smoke enough. Like I took one hit off a joint. I don't remember noticing an effect. And it wasn't one of those things where everyone else said I was high, and didn't try it again until I was 18. Tried it a couple times at 18, then really got to like it and used it more after that. Hallucinogenics or any other drugs I didn't try before 18. The alcohol was like when I was 14, 15, 16, I was like a young punk. I drank heavily on the weekends, but not daily. It's like I have good, responsible parents. They made me go to school every day, so I was having to attend high school. But on the weekends when I went out, me and my friends would binge drink until we puked. So I would do that a lot of weekends, but nothing like daily use. Oh, Locke, you're an occultist. I find the occult fascinating. Currently researching AI cults and psychogenic phenomenon. Okay, very interesting. Um, Maybe we should talk more. Maybe so I had offered to Poor that if he or she wants or they want to share their expertise, we might be able to do a podcast sometime, and they politely declined. Would you like to do a podcast sometime on the subject of AI cults? And yeah, heavy alcohol at that age, unreparable damage. Yeah, I'm sure I did unreparable damage as a teenager. How many people here feel they got through their teenage years without any unrepairable damage to their brain? Does anyone else feel like saying hi? I don't know why so many people are watching this not engaged. I understand why Locke and Poor are still here. Like, this is bad content now. And if you just joined us, I'm going to edit this out after. So if you want to comment. I'm going to cut this out. Paul Vanderclay. Is that really you, Paul? Okay. I think that's really Paul. Hey, Paul. ChatGPT knows who you are too, by the way. I was shocked that ChatGPT knew who I was, and it knows who you are too. I discussed you with it last night. So Paul didn't do any drugs or alcohol. Oh, and thank you for the welcome back, Paul. That's very nice of you. Well, now that Paul's here, shoot, maybe I should have kept this entertaining all the way up till now so I could leave this out. How you doing, Paul? Do you want to do a podcast sometime? So I don't know have you been listening for a while, or do you want a quick catch me up? I'm really glad to hear you're doing well. I didn't follow your stuff consistently while I had dropped off from the face of the internet, but I peeked every now and then. But I have not, like when I wasn't active on the channel, I also wasn't active on Discord. I wasn't actively following up on most of the channels that you and I used to interact with. So I very much fell out of our little circle online and just disappeared from the internet for some time. I recently did a video that was going to be, just came in now, then I saw the first video. So I hear about the long COVID and the lack of mania, but still the depression. Okay. Yeah, so I did a video like a week ago or something, and when I did the video, I was intending it to be an update to let people know I was still alive. I didn't know if anyone still cared, and I don't mean that in a self-deprecating way, but like I'd barely done anything in years. I hadn't appeared at all in over a year. I kind of assumed most people had forgotten about me, but I did wonder, because I ended on such a bad note, being suicidal. I wanted to pop on and just let people know that I was still alive. You know me, I was always, let's talk about the positive. Let's not tear people down. Making comment, criticizing people is so easy. So I had not intended to say anything critical about Jordan Peterson. It just came out when I was doing that goodbye video. I was like, oh shit, okay, fuck it. I said, look, I still love Jordan Peterson. Absolutely nothing that I said about him previously is no longer true. However, the direction he has gone is something I do not want to be associated with. And no, I'm not saying you would judge me for being critical. I judged me for being critical. I didn't want to. But because I was so strongly associated with Peterson, I did want to get that out there that he's moved in directions that I just don't want to be associated with. So I still love his old stuff. And in fact, the reason I find it so disappointing, the changes he's made, I disagree with. The reason I find them so disappointing is precisely because he had something that was so precious at the beginning. Jordan Peterson reached desperately suicidal people of all political persuasions in a way that I've never seen anyone do. Even though initially he was divisive and initially he was speaking out against the far left, initially he was doing it in such a good way that far left people were taking advantage of his material and pulling themselves out of suicidal states. I've spoken to them. He was reaching far left people, and he was reaching just people desperate about to commit suicide. He was even reaching school shooters that were planning on shooting up schools. He could reach those kind of people. He could reach them on the left and the right. His newer material, which I find more divisive, like his comment that girl isn't beautiful, and then he does a podcast with Michaela discussing his reasons for it. And the end of it, he says, so you know what? If you don't like it, fuck you. I can't believe he did that. It's like, really? Anyone who didn't like that you called her not beautiful You want to say fuck you to them all now? And so we don't want to help any of those people. And like, by the way, I didn't like that. I thought she was beautiful. I didn't like that you said it. And also, with a lot of Peterson's material, I just don't like how angry he's gotten. I don't like that he chose a side. And I'm not saying he chose the wrong side. I don't judge left or right as wrong. Initially, Peterson was not choosing a side and was saying he was meta-political. This is something I liked it when he wasn't choosing a side because he was reaching both sides. Then he chose a side, and then he got more divisive, more angry, and more offensive. That really disappoints me, only because that alienates people he used to reach. And that was such a precious service he provided that I don't see anyone else filling that niche. Does anyone else see someone else filling the niche of early Peterson, of reaching the desperately suicidal, reaching far left people and school shooters and pulling them out of the darkness? Okay, so I'm just waiting to see if Paul has any answers to anything I was just saying. Yeah, you don't see anyone else filling that niche. It was a special time. Yeah, so that's too bad. So one thing you might find interesting, Paul, earlier in this video, when I was talking to ChatGPT today, I had, so I used it for the first time last night, and then I used it today. At the end of the night last night, I erased its memory and deleted all my conversations with it, even though I think now I didn't need to delete the conversations. I could just erase the memory. But I approached ChatGPT fresh today, and I didn't tell it who I was. And then I started asking it about Mercury Black, the public figure, because it knows who I am. Interestingly, my conversation led to, it brought up more ethics at one point, and we discussed ethics in various places. Then I asked it to compare the ethics of certain public figures. I asked it to compare Mercury Black to Alex Jones, and it chose me as more ethical than Alex Jones. I asked it to compare Mercury Black to Ben Shapiro, and it chose Mercury Black as more ethical. Then I asked it to compare Mercury Black to Jordan Peterson. At first, it tried not to. And then when I pushed it and said, compare Jordan Peterson's ethics to Mercury Black the same way you did with Ben Shapiro, it then did this detailed breakdown. And so earlier in the stream, I shared my screen and showed the detailed breakdown it gave as to the ethics of Mercury Black versus the ethics of Jordan Peterson. And spoiler alert, I won. So yeah, you might want to go back and check that out. But I'm thinking of wrapping this up now. My brain's exhausted. This has gone, I think even though I would love to keep this part of you and me talking, Paul, it comes after a long period of very boring stuff and me having already said that I'm going to take the end off so that people can just shoot the shit. So I am still going to take the end off because I said I was going to. It's too bad you didn't show up before so that I could leave this. Really nice to reconnect with you too. Even though I was going to just do a video and disappear again, the response from people who are glad I did a video and were asking for more made me do another video. And because, like, you know me, I'm a people pleaser. I do want to help people. People asked for more content, so here I am doing more content, even though I didn't think I would. It appears that might continue for a while. So if you would like to come on and do a podcast with me sometime, whether we're discussing the changes in Jordan Peterson, you could just fill me in on how your community's been going since I disappeared. But I'd love to have you back on if that's something that interests you. Just message me on Discord if you'd like to do a podcast together, or if you want me on your channel, or if you just want to do one podcast that we put on both. Great catching up with you too, Rojo. It's been fun speaking to you too, poor Yorick Biomedical, and thank you so much for bringing in a big brain on the subject. I'm sorry that I couldn't make use of your expertise, because what you were offering there of let's talk about the algorithm and how it really works, that was a valuable offer. I just was not in the headspace to take advantage of it. And Paul says, it'd be good to talk again. I've got a meeting coming up in June, so I might have to be after the summer if you're still interested. Sure. Just let me know as soon as you've got time. And I'll always be interested in speaking to you, Paul. All right. And so on that note, yeah, God bless. Lunatic love to all. Wish you all just nothing but the best.